morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to all of you as we gather for this important webinar series on 100% electrified buildings and communities for climate governance Malaysia in collaboration with the US Embassy. It's also proudly supported by Greenery and Malaysia Green Building Council. I'm honored to be your MC for this exciting event. Our aim is crystal clear here: to enhance efficiencies at scale and pave the way for electrifying homes, commercial buildings, and communities across Malaysia. We recognize the urgency of addressing climate change and the pivotal role electrification plays in our sustainable future. Throughout this series, we'll tap into the expertise of leading voices in the field and gain insights into the practicalities of electrification. This isn't just about technical adjustments. It's about shaping a greener, more eco-conscious Malaysia for generations to come. I'd encourage you to engage with the panelists, share your thoughts, and leave questions on the Q&A chat box, as this is an opportunity for us to learn from each other. Together, we can transform our communities and leave a lasting legacy for our environment. Thank you for being here to join us on the second session of the series, Powering Businesses for a Bright Future. Now, let us pass the floor to Dato Seri Johan Raslan, Council Member of Climate Governance Malaysia and Director of Sime Darby Property. Over to you, Dato.
Thank you very much, Shen. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning from Malaysia, good evening from the United States, and good sort of middle of the night from the United Kingdom. My name is Johan, and I want to bid you a warm welcome from CGM. CGM, or Climate Governance Malaysia, is the Malaysian chapter of the World Economic Forum's Climate Governance Initiative. We are a network of non-executive directors of companies, and we aim to acquire the practical skills needed as long-term stewards of the businesses that we are directors of to help steer these companies through an effective climate transition strategy, taking into account the need for financial stability, increased resilience, and sustainability. We undertake a range of events with the intention of raising awareness of the climate emergency that we all face, especially in our extremely vulnerable region of Southeast Asia. Our events range from the intimate, like this one, up to hundreds of participants, like our climate summit just 2 weeks ago. Today, we and the Embassy of the United States of America embark on a remarkable series of discussions aimed at transforming the way we power our homes, condominiums, and apartments in Malaysia. So this is very personable and relatable, I'm sure, to all of us. As the series progresses, all of us will gain valuable insights from experts, thought leaders, and innovators in the field. I am personally really excited to learn from the experts gathered here today, and I can't wait. So I don't want to take up any more minutes than I have to, and let me now hand right over to Mr. Gandhi Suppiah, Regional Director of TSA Advisory, to give his introductory remarks. Thank you very much. And Gandhi, over to you.
Thank you, Dato Sri Johan Raslan, and thank you for your time, with the time differences in the UK. Selamat pagi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us this morning on this exciting talk. A very relevant topic indeed, particularly with the bill approved yesterday to regulate the efficient consumption of energy and conservation of energy with the aim to improve and increase energy efficiency and to avoid waste of energy. Now, the construction and the building sector globally accounts for now more than 40% of the carbon emissions, and 2/3 of these emissions actually come from operation of existing infrastructure. And with us this morning, to share how to, get this energy efficiency in place, we have Sean Armstrong, who is a managing principal for Redwood Energy, a highly experienced consultant who has won several awards, grand prizes, and currently the US Speaker of Net Zero for the US State Department. And then we also have A.R. Zul, who's an experienced architect who has a significant experience, a member of Malaysian MAESCO Association, who will then come after Sean Armstrong. So without taking too much time, I'll bring in Sean to provide his, share his knowledge and his experience on energy efficiency. Over to you, Sean.
Oh, thank you very much, Gandhi. I very much appreciate it. And thank all of you for joining us this morning. I'd like to also thank, of course, the State Department for hosting me. And thank you, the Embassy of Malaysia and the business community. Thank all of you. So today I'm going to share some thoughts on powering businesses for a brighter future in Malaysia, electrifying them. Just briefly to introduce myself, I grew up on a farm. I'm a farm boy. I went on to become a high school science teacher for a few years, but then I went into business. I helped my wife start a farm, and I went into development, building large apartment complexes and houses for low-income households. And in 2011, I became then a consultant for that. And since then, I've worked on about 400 developments that were all electric, 100% solar powered, similar to that one you see on the bottom of the screen there, where it has a 9-story tall solar wall, which is cost effective. From a business perspective, all of the solar arrays that have ever gone into any of our apartment complexes have always had fast paybacks and were cost effective. They were done for good business, not because it was a charitable effort. It was just, solar was a cheaper form of energy than getting it from the grid. So Malaysia, it has about 99% of the gas that is delivered through the cities, right, is going to industrial customers. And I'm going to focus some tonight on industrial and commercial customers. So rubber products, but also like making foods and beverages and other sort of basic supplies for how you get through life. And that is most of what is being, most of the gas that's being used in Malaysia, if it's not in vehicles, if it's going to various kinds of buildings. So I thought it'd be fun just to start with beer and dairy products. I was looking up, researching on Malaysia, and I was like, oh, about 76% of the alcohol that's drank in Malaysia is beer. Beer is a very popular drink, apparently. And if you already know this, I was just teaching myself about how popular beer was. And then also dairy products. I learned that Malaysia is trying to become dairy self-sufficient by 2025. So I was going to talk a little bit about those significant products, because there's a lot of gas that gets used in both, and talk about how we can work towards a cleaner future. So beer brewing. Why would you go electric if you're brewing beer? And one would be reduced fire risks. I'll show you this slide on that in a second. More control, so just better brewing of beer. And no kettle scorching, which is both good for the materials and also the taste of the beer. So here's an example of what happens when you mix flames, like a methane fire, natural gas that's heating the tanks of beer, the mash and such, with the fact that alcohol, when it's brewing, it gets into the air. And you can have large buildups of flammable gas, because alcohol, of course, is flammable. And so there's actually every year, there's at least a few breweries in the United States that catch on fire. I've just been going through the news here in the stateside, and this is one of them. This is near where I'm sitting here in California. This fire burnt for almost 5 days, because once the alcohol catches on fire, there's almost nothing you can do to put it out. So one of the reasons to stop putting flammable gas into buildings is that it causes fires. Another reason is that electricity is generally just more controllable. And here are the temperature regimes. I apologize, this is in Fahrenheit, but what you can see here, and this is just some of the many beers that are brewed out there, in light blue, you can see how the temperature that the yeast needs to be kept at is just a 3-degree band, maybe 5 degrees at the most, but it's a very narrow band that you have to keep the temperature right. When you're adding gas, it often overheats things, because gas burns at about 3,400 degrees Fahrenheit. Apologize, I don't have that in centigrade. But water boils at 100 degrees centigrade. And having 1,000 or 2,000 degrees centigrade flame, that isn't actually that helpful for producing the exact temperature that you want. So one of the reasons why breweries and other industries that rely upon careful control go to electric is because it's just easier to put just the right amount of electricity and to get the temperatures just right. And scorch. As mentioned before, how heat is added to foods, and at the industrial scale, but also at the smaller scale, however it's added, if it's added underneath, you can get, in the case of beer, you can burn the bottom of the pot. And if it's a very large kettle, you have to go in there and scrub it down. I have a friend who works in a brewery, and that's part of their job, is to scrub out these kettles so that the next beer comes in doesn't taste bad, like it's gotten burnt. Well, if on the right-hand side, you can see that's an electric resistance element. It'll be cooking at a lower temperature. So yes, it'll still get stuff burnt to it, but not as much. And it's easier to clean. And if you take that element out, it's easier to replace as well. You don't have to replace the entire pot. You just have to replace the heating element in there. So these are three reasons that you can sort of consider other ways that would become true, that beer has been shifting towards all electric breweries around the United States, around Eurasia. Here's an example, Heineken. I researched favorite beers in Malaysia, and I discovered that according to the internet, Heineken is a popular beer in Malaysia. Well, Heineken has been electrifying its breweries throughout Western Eurasia, and that includes this one here in Spain. Behind them, you can see they've set up a huge solar collector field to just point all of these mirrors towards salt in the middle and a tower to heat up the salt, and then to be able to use that heat at nighttime. It's just like a heat battery, essentially. So they're not only electrifying, they're adding renewable energy in a way that works in Spain. When you're in northern Germany, they don't use solar collectors to make the heat. They use ground source heat pumps. They'll like dig wells down in the ground, put pipes down there, and collect the heat from the ground. And I found that beer brewing, they change the way that they add renewable energy to beer brewing, be it solar panels here or ground source heat pumps there. But it's consistent. They try to electrify the brewery and then add cheap electricity or cheap heat. Here's just another nice example over in Finland. You can see all the beers and the soda pops they're making over there on the right. And this is a zero carbon brewery. So not only have they electrified everything, no gas is being burnt in the facility, big facility. They've also installed some heat pumps to collect heat from the beer as it's cooling off. They can actually essentially put a refrigerator on that, but a refrigerator collects heat. What do you do with the waste heat? You just dump it out into the air? No, they're recycling it. So about 26% of the heat in this facility is being captured with a heat pump and put back into the process where heat was needed. So in electrifying, it also greatly increased the energy efficiency of the building, or decreased, you could think of, their electricity bills, making themselves more profitable. Now I was going to talk about milk. Say there's a little headline I found out there. Malaysia aims for milk self-sufficiency by 2025. I am from the milk heartland of the United States. Wisconsin is where most really good cheeses come from. So I thought this would be fun, Malaysia, my home country, Wisconsin. Focus on this for a second. So here's a great example in Australia. So this is a zero carbon dairy. And what they're doing is they've got solar panels up on the roof. We've got wind turbines. Australia, much of it doesn't have tall forests. Much of it is relatively low scrub, and you can get some good wind. They're taking the feces of the cattle and they're turning it into methane gas and then burning it. So they're doing biodigestion of all the poop that comes out of cows. When you bring cows into a dairy barn, they poop while they're getting milked. And then you have to scrape all of it out. And what do you do with it? Do you just let it release all of the methane into the atmosphere, or do you capture it and then burn it? And the latter answer is the best thing, because methane is a terrible climate change agent. So if you capture it and turn it into CO2 by burning it, you reduce the pollution that it causes, the climate change pollution, by about 30-fold. It's like 1/30th as much pollution if you just burn the methane compared to letting it go into the air. Of course, they have energy monitoring systems, but I like the fact that they have ATVs, all-terrain vehicles that are electric. So they've embraced the transportation part of their business, chasing down the cattle, as well as the entire facility. And they're using a heat pump for the hot water, but it's a specific one. It's a CO2 heat pump. CO2 heat pumps are great because they produce very hot temperatures very efficiently. And if they leak, they're not dangerous. Some dairies, they use ammonia for their refrigerant, and if ammonia leaks, it'll kill you. And if it leaks and it catches on fire, it'll blow up and kill you. So converting over to safe refrigerants is this is a nice little encapsulation, a good example of that. Safer, more efficient, all electric, renewably powered. Now here we have in a nice big facility though. So heat pumps pair perfectly with pasteurization. Pasteurization is where you heat up milk or beer or canned food or anything. You heat things up and you do it to sterilize the food, to kill the germs that are inside. Pasteurization can be done at lower temperatures, like 140 Fahrenheit, kind of slowly. Oh, I have to do it in Celsius, don't I? Well, since I can't, being a stupid American, I apologize. I'll just say this, that pasteurization can be done at a lower temperature slowly or at a higher temperature quickly. But in either case, you're going to add heat that is usually below boiling. You're going to get the temperature up, but not boiling temperatures. Now you have this thing that's heated, milk, but it could be beer, could be anything. You heat it up to kill everything in it, and now you need to take the heat away. Once again, when you take the heat away, that's an opportunity to recycle the heat. So instead of just sticking the beer into a refrigerator, you could stick it into the equivalent of a big building refrigerator, and as you pull the heat out, turn it back into source heat for the water that gets heated up again for pasteurization, and just grab maybe, like you saw before, about 26%. With this method that they have of recycling heat, they only have to add heat at the beginning once a week. So they start off with getting a whole bunch of water really hot with their boilers, and then they're just recycling it for about a week before they have to start over again, adding heat again. Very impressive, very efficient, very good business move. I mean, the number one cost of this business after labor is energy. So first you make your facility efficient labor-wise, and then you make it efficient energy-wise, and that's a good business. And just on that topic of business, this is a good example of how this business is saving $250,000 US dollars a year by installing a heat pump. They did not have a heat pump before for capturing the waste heat, and now they're using a heat pump for chilling in this dairy facility here in Iowa. So yeah, a whole bunch of money just from recapturing the heat. This is another fun example of saving money by electrifying. This big swimming pool complex, this is like for tourists, for fun times in Florida, in the United States. Florida is 77% all electric construction there. And this is one of those examples, but they were using propane before, which is very expensive. They were using propane to heat this whole outside swimming pool. It has like all these showers, and you float down it on an inner tube. And so instead, they replaced it, and they cut their utility bills in half, so half as much money being spent. Good business move. And they're using Aquacal's Big Bopper, this heat pump you see on the right-hand side here. Aquacal is active in Malaysia, Aquacal Malaysia, and you could get this product as an example. Here are some other, Ream is very active in Malaysia, manufacturing, and so this is another like swimming pool size heat pump. And, I was gonna go into restaurants next. So just pointing out, like if you have a tourism facility, that commercial use, and if you're burning gas in there, heat pumps dramatically lower the bills. And for that matter, if you're using electric resistance instead of gas to do any of the heating work, once again, a heat pump will use 1/3 or 1/5 as much electricity as just burning like electric resistance. So big money savings, regardless if you're using fuel or electric resistance by going to a heat pump. And restaurants. So reasons to go to this commercial facility and get rid of the gas. One is just burns, fires. Whenever you have open flames combined with a gas, you have real danger. And so I collect newspaper articles of restaurants that have blown up. And the question is always, did the person survive? Because usually what happens, they come in the morning, there's been a gas leak, and they're lighting one of the stoves, and the pool of gas around them blows up, and they're thrown against a wall, and they spend 3 weeks in the hospital in a coma, covered in burn. So no burns, no explosion, no indoor air pollution. When you're burning gas, it's just as bad as smoking cigarettes. Gas from a stove, which has no filtration, no cleaning to it, it just burns. It's a very dirty burn. So in restaurants, they have big fans above the dirty burn in order to get rid of the air pollution. But if the fan isn't working well, or if someone just puts their head over the stove, they're inhaling just like if you're putting your face into the exhaust of a car, only dirtier. The exhaust from a car goes through a catalytic converter, and there's no catalytic converter that takes out pollution from a gas stove. So if you get rid of gas stoves, you get rid of a lot of pollution. And it keeps the kitchen cooler. Electric stoves, electric resistance, and electric induction, both of those use far less energy and produce lots less heat. So a gas stove is about 30% efficient at getting the gas heat into food, and a electric stove is about 60%, and induction is about 80%. And what that represents is cutting the amount of fuel, the heat that's in the kitchen, cuts the heat down by half to 2/3. Much more comfortable. So here are examples. Asian American cuisine. Panda Express is a chain that's all over the United States. Hundreds of places you can go to Panda Express. And they've been converting the food well from gas that was heating water, that was heating the food. Now they have induction. So each pot of food is kept at just the right temperature. Not all the same temperature, with some things getting overcooked and some things not being done right. Each pot has its own temperature. Down here, Benihana, this is a sort of a Japanese-ish restaurant. It's really playful. They juggle. They light things on fire. And lighting things on fire, they're having problems because they're lighting things on fire purposely, but they have gas there. And so to prevent actual dangerous fires from catching people on fire around them, they've converted their planchas, their griddles. They're doing all this sort of fun juggling and cutting and telling jokes while they're making food for you, kind of thing. This is the White House. This is the United States residence for the president, the White House. And the executive chef here, she's a Filipino woman named Chef Comerford. And she's been cooking at the White House since the 1990s. So this is one example where she was working with the president at the time, President Obama and Michelle Obama, and Stephen Curry in the upper right-hand corner. He's one of our most famous basketball players. It's a sport in the United States. So they took this fun pop song called Turn Down for What, and they then made a turnip soup. So it's a joke, turnip for what? And then they sang the song Turn Down for What while holding turnips, the vegetable. And you can see Chef Comerford here, she's working on an induction cooktop. Behind her is gas. And the White House, the kitchen is converting slowly from gas to electric. When something breaks, they replace it with electric. In this case, because they're shooting a little movie and dancing and singing and such, she has this induction range right there in front of the camera so that she can show people how to cook this soup. Here you see, this might surprise you, but Italian food really cooked well in woks. So this is an Italian restaurant, a fancy restaurant in New York City. And you can see that they have woks that they're using to do the final preparation of the pasta in. Here, I apologize. This is kind of my first experience of having Mongolian hot pot. It wasn't Mongolian, it was Korean hot pot. And it's just the most amazing experience. But as you probably know, there's multiple different cooking traditions in which there's something that cooked right in front of you and you dip in the vegetables and you can make your own dish from it. So historically, they've used gas. But restaurants have found it much safer, much easier to use little induction hot plates. And oh yes, and just noting that you're welcome to put comments in chat if you'd like. Just noting now, probably why I have to clean up my screen here because okay, well anyway. This is just an example of many manufacturers. There's a whole bunch of different businesses in Malaysia that are selling induction ranges for both restaurants and for homes. Now, let's move into construction. Talking about how the fact that gas is being used primarily in industry. And so here we go. One of the biggest uses of, one of the biggest uses of gas is firing a cement kiln, classic industrial use of gas. They'll have essentially a gigantic blowtorch and they'll torch limestone, and the process of dry, like heating it up super hot, changes it and it turns it into a dust that when you dump water onto it, it turns back into rock, cement. So the process of making cement out of limestone is very energy intensive. It takes a ton of energy, heat, but it doesn't have to be gas. So this is an example of an electric kiln, which you could then run on clean electricity from solar and wind and water and the various sources of energy out there that are not dirty. If you were hauling that cement someplace, this is an example now of Volvo, who's selling heavy-duty electric semi-trucks. So this is just from 2 months ago, August of 2023. You can see here a logistics company, just shipping, the shipping company called Swift Howlage Burhad. And they're early adopters. Here's 2 of the Volvo FM electric trucks, electric semi-trucks. Here's Scania over in Malaysia. And you can see it can get 624 kilowatt hours in it, which is so much. Like a home battery has 13 kilowatt hours in it for some relative comparison. Just amazing. So you can go 320 kilometers with 40 tons in the back of it. This is kind of the future now. The semi trucks, they're just coming out last year and this year, being able to actually perform. But we're seeing a whole bunch of them now out on the market with really big batteries. I've been seeing them testing them, taking them like 1,400 kilometers on a charge. Really amazing, long distances. Big ones here in the United States, I'm looking at like the Tesla one that's just come out. So palm fruit. I just want to note here that the trucks that are coming out, they are almost at the point, we don't yet have a truck that looks exactly like this that's electric, but there are electric dump trucks. There's electric trucks of all different types, basically, is my point. And Malaysia is right at the point where you could get electric trucks for farming. I teach a whole class on how to farm electrically in the United States, but not everything is equally available everywhere. Malaysia has stuff that we don't have, and vice versa. And here's an example of how you could harvest the fruits with a scissor lift, getting way up into the trees to harvest the fruits, but electrically. So you don't have to have a gas engine there. You're hauling and pushing, like farming often involves a lot of dirt work, so you sort of make new spaces for things. And so these are just more examples of sort of crossover. Yes, this is construction equipment, but you might use it for farming. Mining. Malaysia does a lot of mining, is my understanding from reading up. And if you are trying to meet the needs of underground mining, underground is one of the most dangerous places to have an open flame because methane will build up down there and become explosive, and that's often a cause of mine collapses and miners getting caught and dying, is because there was some reason for an open flame. And as mining is transitioning to, it's electrifying, it's way safer as a consequence without open flames. So Sandvik has announced plans to set up a new production plant in Malaysia of their electric mining equipment. Here we have an electric off-highway dump truck. And here's some more examples of, these are just mining trucks. They're not available today, but all of you are in this for the long haul. right? So if it's next year that these trucks become available in Malaysia, or the year following, you can see that if you prepare, if you get the community of business people ready for this, then they'll be able to take advantage of them as they become available. And lots of these big vehicles are available now. This is just a nice example of them trying to do it all at once. So Norway is inarguably one of the leaders in the world in electrifying everything. Right now they have 80% of the vehicles being sold in Norway are electric, and they have electric construction sites at this point. So in 2019, it was the first time that Oslo attempted to have a zero carbon, zero emission urban construction site. So you can see there's buildings all around. One of the nicest things about these vehicles, that last bullet point, is that they're quiet. So local businesses were able to keep their doors open during construction and didn't complain about the noise, because they are about 1/10 as loud. Your ears adjust for that, and so it is experienced as only 1/4 as loud, but they are in fact about 1/10 as loud in terms of the amount of noise energy they put out. And still 1/4 as loud is way quieter if you're near it. So I just note that their grid is already 98% clean. Malaysia right now, the grid is about 20% clean, 19% clean. But still, this is an opportunity to transition. Malaysia's grid is getting cleaner every year. The world's grid are getting cleaner every year because solar is being added hand over fist. Same with wind. So, and just to note that they succeeded. They were at 99%. They had one propane burner they couldn't replace, but they were able to do a construction site with all electric equipment 4 years ago. Now, this is kind of fun. The Ford F-150, as well as many other vehicles, this is just one that's come out recently, and there's a fun picture of it. What they've done is, for construction sites, instead of having a generator, the truck itself is the generator, and it has 11 plugs on it that you can plug small equipment like saws. You see all the things that are being run here, like chop saws and various skill saws. All of them are being run off electricity off the truck. This is one of the problems that we have in the United States, and I assume kind of anywhere, is that when you're starting to build, you'd like to have electricity, but usually you're building someplace that hasn't been built before, so it doesn't have electricity, or it doesn't have electricity at least to your site, maybe it's nearby. And the process of getting electricity at your construction site is difficult and slows things down. So what we're seeing is that cities in the United States are buying these trucks for landscaping crews, because landscaping crews can go out there and they can work all day quietly and they don't disturb anyone else around them with their electric leaf blowers and their electric lawnmowers. The city that I'm presenting from right now is they have banned all gas outside landscaping equipment. You can't run a gas lawnmower in the city I'm in right now, Coronado, which is near San Diego. So in that situation, you could have an expensive small battery, or you could plug it into this big truck. And that's what we're seeing is cities around California where I am, the parks and recreation departments which are kind of a construction department. They go out and do real work. They're buying these trucks. Now, I'm gonna see if I can pull this off. Okay, hold on for a moment. I'm gonna see if I can show you this video, which is kind of cute. Just give me a moment while I load it up on YouTube, okay? Still here. Just having to do that like change screen thing. Come on now. Okay. And do new share. Here it is. So this is a 30-second advertisement in Japan for the Nissan Leaf. And it doesn't want to load. Come on. I'm just gonna tell you what it does. I don't want to. Yeah, I'm gonna do my share back to my slide deck here. Okay, and then I'll do it full screen. Okay, sorry. Oh no, it's running. It's on my other screen. Hold on for a moment here. I'm gonna just took too long. Okay, come on. I'm just having a little technical difficulties here, so I'm just try one more time. Here we go. So the power goes out at this business. That's the point, okay? Then they plug the car into the building. And the car is now charging this grocery store. So that is an advertisement. And we're talking, this is, I'm trying to make a business focused conversation. When grocery stores lose power, they have to throw away all of their perishable goods, all the frozen stuff, all of the dairy, all those things have to get thrown away. At least in the United States, any amount of warming up of the food and it's considered waste. And you lose a ton of money if you own a grocery store and you have to throw away, if all the ice cream got melted, you can't really sell that very well. So this is an example of how electric vehicles can support small businesses during power outages and make sure that the food doesn't spoil. And this can work for a larger grocery store, but this is, a mini mart. And I think it's a great example of the business case for electric vehicles, not just for yourself, but like, how else might this help you? Could it help you build a building without having to get temporary power? Could it keep the electricity on of your business when it's going out, and so you keep your critical functions going? Now, this, I believe, last little bit here, I just want you to know that Malaysia has a great program for putting up solar. It's a good value. I encourage you to do it. There are two ways you can, the sort of standard way, just your building making electricity, but for business purposes, where you can make electricity, it's the lower right-hand corner, your building makes electricity, it goes into the grid, but you assign it to up to three other buildings, designated premises. So you can put a solar array up where you want it to go and get the electricity credited to a different business that you have. Okay, so that is my presentation. I hope that it worked out for you. I realize I went over a couple minutes, but if you have any questions, I'm here in the chat, and I hope that made sense to you.
That's very impressive presentation, Sean. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks
So
for
now
having
let's
me.
welcome. Thank you. So now let's just welcome Sean to join our local panelists, Zulkifli and moderator Gandhi, for a panel discussion. Over to you, Gandhi.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Sean. Extremely enlightening. Thank you for sharing, some of the initiatives that that you've shown today. Recycling heat, particularly in the context of Malaysia being quite warm, bringing that heat to chill, cool down Malaysia, because energy, cooling Malaysia and the industries and the businesses and residents requires a lot of heat in the sense of energy. And so bringing that heat to chill could be a potential real opportunity. But clearly what you've shown, Sean, is that the why is, doesn't need to be questioned, because the why reduces costs for businesses and people, but it's the how. So you've shown some of the hows that, that we should be considering, that how to transfer some of the initiatives that you've shown today into the business models and thinking. So, and thank you for that. Now, I would like to now bring A.R. Zul, one of our panelists, who's the president of the Malaysian Association of Energy Services Company, and to give his perspective on what you've heard today, but also, to look at what are the perspectives of 100% electrifying commercial buildings. A.R. Zul, what is your thoughts on that?
Good morning, everybody. I think it's late evening in US now, and it's very much in the morning. So anyway, thank you very much for having me this morning. So before I begin, perhaps I would like to have an overview about why. I think it's good for everybody to know why energy efficiency is important. And the key thing that we are trying to do is actually to reduce greenhouse gas. So in Malaysia, we still have more than 80% of our energy being generated by fossil fuels, of which 50% more is still coal. Yeah, and it's ironic for me to see one of the presentation slides where you have an electrical mining equipment cutting away coal as a way of reducing energy. So what happens is when you convert coal into energy, actually there is so much conversion losses throughout the whole process, and there will be distribution losses, there will be transmission losses, and we are also looking into inefficient energy equipment that may be used in our homes and in our electricity. And what it means is when we save even 1 unit of energy input into our equipment, we actually save multiples of units out there in the power stations, and therefore the effect of greenhouse gases is reduced tremendously at source. So that is why energy efficiency should be regarded or is regarded as the first fuel by the International Energy Efficiency. So I also would like to touch on Mr. Gandhi when he mentioned about our new regulation, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. I think this is something that should interest everybody, our listeners down here, because it has been a long journey, this act. It's been 12 years in the making. And finally, we have our own Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. Before this, we just have a regulation called Efficient Management of Electrical Energy Regulation 2008. Yeah, and that only governs electricity. With this act, we now govern both electricity as well as thermal. Of course, in our commercial sector, most of our energy is used electricity. But in the industrial, more than 50% of the energy is actually thermal. And when we talk about thermal, we are talking about boilers, we are talking about furnaces, we are talking about cogeneration and so on, and multiples of equipment. So with this regulation in place, all the facilities that will be affected by this regulation will need to be very conscious of how they utilize their energy and benchmark themselves against international and local standards. So it affects buildings, it affects industries, it even affects homes, because more energy equipment of our home appliances will be rated. But anyway, this act is still not out, so it is still embargoed, but I think we could just have a hint of what we can expect. Yeah. So what we can expect from this regulation is that experts will have to be trained in order to perform various expertise like energy audits, because if you don't have the skills of auditing facility, then you cannot measure what is your efficiency. And if you cannot measure, you will not be able to manage. Of course, as I mentioned, there will be equipment, and those entities, whether you are commercial or industrial, if you reach a certain threshold of energy utilization, therefore you will be affected by this regulation. And it's anticipated that there will be somewhere around more than 4,000 or even 5,000 facilities that will be affected by this regulation. And with this regulation in place, I think our newly launched National Energy Roadmap, Transition Roadmap, which places energy efficiency as the first lever, will become more effective. So this ENC Act, as well as our National Energy Transition Roadmap, will be working closely together in order for us to achieve our national goal of reducing greenhouse gas by 45% come 2030. And of course, the global objective of achieving net zero by 2050. So anyway, I'm just speaking off the cuff because I do not have any presentation, but just for openness, I would like to say that, our main issue is trying to achieve energy efficiency in order to accelerate our national goals. So I leave it at that for the time being, Mr. Gandhi.
Thank you, Arjul. Thank you for sharing your perspective in this, and particularly bringing that bill in. I mean, that, together with the national energy, sort of transition roadmap, is an important jigsaw that is going to help Malaysia, hopefully, to a potentially a brighter future, pun intended, really in this case, and reduce our CO2 emissions as part of our commitment, as you mentioned, 45% reduction of CO2 by 2030. We have a certain set of questions that are coming in the chat box, but I would encourage a lot more people to put more questions in the chat box, please. Now, I'd like to bring Sean back into, got a few questions that Sean that, we'd like to ask you, and also Arjul on essentially, what we've discussed this morning. So, Sean, Southeast Asia has got a significant amount of sunshine. There's no doubt. We are a tropical rainforest country, but solar is only effective, between 4 to 6 hours. It's about a third effective. So, what are your thoughts on how solar power can be made more efficient, but also energy security is going to be a big part of this. So, what's your thoughts on this?
So we got paid, we're part of a grant-funded research team, $1 million from the state of California to try to figure out how to use solar energy more effectively. And what we found is that we could do a 95% solar-powered apartment complex. 95%. And we have not as good of a situation as you have in Malaysia. In the wintertime, there's less sunshine and we have worse weather. And that was the 5% we couldn't do, was some of the worst of the winter weather. But we found that if we could store the electricity at night and just get through the night, basically, when the sun came up the next day, we could make more electricity. So it became a storage problem, not so much a solar problem. The storage problem, I would point to a city in the Netherlands, Utrecht. Utrecht is putting in EV chargers where the EV can not only absorb electricity during the day from the sunshine, just a normal EV charger, but it can discharge into the grid at night. So the question of where do the batteries come from? Batteries are kind of expensive. And the answer seems to be electric vehicles. People are buying them anyway. People want them. We don't have to have a business model where we go out and buy tons of batteries for our grid. We could actually just let people buy their own cars. And as long as they're bi-directional, that they can charge the grid, that gets us to 100%, we've found. So while while solar panels produce electricity 4 to 8 hours of the day, if you can store it, you're good. And that is right now in the United States, there are 80 times as much batteries driving around on wheels as there are batteries on people's houses. 80 times. And there's 3 times as much batteries driving around on wheels as there are batteries connected to our grid. So it's clear that really the batteries that we have in the United States are electric vehicle batteries. We don't have a whole lot of other kinds of batteries. So if we lean in that, if we focus on that, electric vehicles, if we can just make them bi-directional so they can charge the grid when the sun's out and absorb sunshine when it's, they can discharge at night and they can absorb during the day. That we found both from a research perspective, that would work. And the state of California is requiring by law that all cars be able to do bi-directional charging by 7 years from now in 2030. And most of the electric vehicle companies have announced globally, like BYD and Tesla, not Tesla, BYD and Chevrolet and Ford and a whole bunch of them, they've all announced, Volkswagen, that in 2025, their cars will be bi-directional in advance of this law. So I really feel like that's our solution. It's like over the next 10, 15 years, as Malaysia gets more electric vehicles, that will be the battery that balances your solar resource.
Thank you, Sean. Really interesting to know that, because I mean, there's only so much batteries that can be produced with the amount of materials that are available. So that's a very limited resource as such, and that giving that bi-directional perspective definitely is something that we should be considering. And as Malaysia picks up its EV, sales up, certainly this will be something that we should be focusing on. Hey, Arzul, just bringing you are from the Malaysian, MAESCO Association. You're the president there. From your perspective, right, promoting energy efficiency in the industrial and commercial sector, how do you see what, some of the things that Sean's mentioned? How do you think we can bring that into play?
Okay, perhaps I can explain to you what, MAESCO stands for Malaysian Association of Energy Services Companies, yeah? So in Malaysia, we call ourselves MAESCO, NESCO. I think in America, it's NISCO, yeah? In Japan, is JISCO and so on. Korea, KAISCO. So we have a big network of global ESCOs, yeah? So what basically an ESCO does is it provides an outlet or a solution. We are the people who owners of industries as well as commercial buildings, the big guzzlers, to come to, for them to actually seek solutions on how they can be more efficient in their businesses. So if we can have a very simple definition of an ESCO, would be that it can bring together capital as well as technology to provide a turnkey solution to their customers in order for them to reduce their fuel costs and also their operational costs. And at the same time, they will be able to contribute to the sustainable development goals that they may set for themselves. So what the ESCO will do is, first and foremost, when we interact initially with the clients, we will carry out an audit. And the first is we will have a walkthrough audit, whether it's a building or a factory. A good ESCO will be able to smell the possibilities of what can be done. If the building is more than 25 years old or 30 years old, then there's a great likelihood that we could save as high as 40% of energy for the owners. Yeah. So upon doing an audit, you are able to come up with possible solutions. We will work with the owners themselves. Yeah, if it's industries, it will be a little bit more intensive because they are very, intensive in making sure that their operations are not disrupted. And it requires various expertise. If you talk about cement, it'll be cement specialist. If you talk about glass and so on. So there's a wide array. In fact, energy efficiency in terms of technology, it is huge. The technology involved in energy efficiency is huge, from the basic small changes up to Internet of Things, anti-cloud-based of monitoring and things like that. So all these solutions, depending on what is the operation, will be discussed. And we will prioritize what are the possibilities that can be done. And after that, we will do the implementation. And at the implementation stage, there are two choices. One is what you call the EPC or the what you call energy performance contracting basis, whereby the client can enjoy zero capex upfront, meaning to say that he doesn't even have to worry about financing of the project, because the savings from the project upon determining that it's viable, will be carried out by the ESCOs themselves. So it is termed as an off-balance sheet project, of which the client can enjoy. And it is guaranteed not only by the contractors, but the suppliers, the ESCOs, and so on. And now banks are coming very much forward in order to learn about this model called EPC. So EPC, there's two choices. One is guaranteed saving, meaning to say the clients can still borrow the money, of which the guarantee will be done by the ESCO, whereby if there's a shortfall, the liability will be held by the ESCO. Otherwise, we can share the saving depending on the amount of savings that can be done. If it is 40 or 50%, perhaps more equitable sharing can be done. But if it is small, then perhaps it's a longer term, of which both parties can enjoy over a period of time, between 3 years to 7 years, after which the total saving will be enjoyed totally by the facilities that engage the ESCOs. Yeah. So that is the model of ESCO businesses, which is going to come in a very big way, because the banks are now very keen in order to finance this kind of projects. So even in our National Transition Roadmap, which was launched by our Prime Minister not long ago, they have already proposed ESCO platform in order to fulfill all the projects of which the government anticipates to retrofit and lead by example before it is rolled out to all the other industries, which will certainly be affected by these coming regulations. So that is an overview of ESCO. But perhaps I could also touch, because your first question, actually you asked me about how is electrification in buildings, yeah? How do we actually look into electrification in buildings? Again, the idea of making sure that buildings are using electricity in a very efficient way. So in Malaysia, how we measure how a building is efficient is what you term as building energy intensity. And different kinds of buildings have different kinds of building energy intensity. For instance, if you talk about an office building, then the desired building energy intensity is about 130 kilowatt hour per meter squared per year. So that's how you measure. The unit is kilowatt hour per meter squared per year. So it will be different from a library, it will be different from a hotel, it will be different from a retail shopping, it will be different for a hospital. So once you carry out an audit, you will know whether you have the ability to save, or you are already at the level of what you can consider as being efficient. And we have our Malaysian MS 1525 as a guidance on how we can propose buildings to be energy efficient according to our own standards. So I just want to touch on your first question as well. Thank you. We can't hear you.
Thank you, Azul. Yeah, I just overheard something. Yeah, thank you for your perspective, and definitely, EPC contracts and models. Some of the business model that's potentially going to deliver this energy efficiency. But one of the things that yesterday in a discussion with a panel, in Singapore, having the right skill set, the right experience, and we are running out of the right people, with that right experience to deliver all of this, and that consideration of how to bring in the likes of potentially generative thinking into a database, and having AI to potentially help facilitate some of these thoughts and deliver some of these potential initiatives are going to be one thoughts in this. So Sean, just bringing you back into some questions. There's quite a lot of questions that are coming through the chat box. Maybe I'll bring one or two questions here before I ask you a couple other questions that that was considered. But from Leong Yi, he's asked about the transition of diesel-based equipment to electricity equipment for construction in Malaysia, which has big gaps and challenges approaching the industrial place. What's your thoughts on that sort of bringing that type of equipment into the industry, and then the cost saving, and particularly while we're talking about battery, the fossil fuel contributes most of the electricity in Malaysia. So what is the drive to transition this?
So construction equipment, the way I've seen construction equipment transition to electrifying is the biggest construction company will buy the first pieces of equipment. And they will pilot it usually in some sort of showy project to sort of make a whole bunch of nonprofits will point at and say, like, look, this is how to do it right. So I have a number of examples of that, sort of like, big deals made out of the fact that some electric construction equipment showed up on the site. So that's one way. Get the prominent developer, general contractor to buy a few pieces, and that just starts things. But about 60% of the world's construction equipment is rented, not owned. Like it's owned by a business that rents construction equipment, and that is a different incentive. Construction equipment, it can't be rented if it's broken, and gas equipment breaks way more than electric equipment. So what we're seeing in the rental business of cars in the United States, Hertz is this big business we have here. Hertz Rent-A-Car, they found that their electric cars are out on the road 60% more because they have no maintenance associated with them. So I think that rental construction companies are going to find the same thing, is that I read about this on all the pieces of construction equipment, they have less maintenance. There's not hydraulics inside of it. There's less moving parts. There's just less things that break in them, because electricity is doing almost all of the energy delivery work, not mechanics and hydraulics. So I think that encouraging a construction rental company, the company that rents out backhoes and things like that to other companies, to start and saying, you're going to make more money this way. I realize it's going to cost something to replace your backhoe with an electric backhoe, but I'm telling you, you're going to be able to rent it more, and that's the business you're in, is renting equipment. So invest and profit, be smart. That is happening in the United States, and I'm seeing electric construction equipment slowly make its way up from the smallest things that they rent to larger and larger pieces. And it seems to be just their business move. They do what they can, but they know that as they electrify, they make more money off of renting it more. So that, I think, is a natural transition. Either the big rental company or a private business, one of the two starts buying equipment, and for business reasons, and ideally you help them, like the Malaysian government gives them some incentive to start. On this topic of how dirty the energy is in Malaysia, the energy in Malaysia is connected, the electrical grid is connected to the rest of Southeast Asia. Malaysia is not actually an islanded grid, right? It is part of a larger context. So what Malaysia does for its electricity is kind of representational. It's not the real thing. But anyway, so you have 19% of the energy is clean in your grid. And what we're seeing around the world right now is the cheapest electricity plants that are being built are solar plus battery. And the second cheapest is wind turbines. And coal, no one's building coal these days. Like a little bit in China, a little bit in Australia, but literally nothing in the United States. There's just, it's not as cheap as solar is. So I think that you start to electrify knowing that your grid is cleaning up. In the world, the fastest thing that's decarbonizing, that's getting cleaner, is the electrical grid. Like, that's getting cleaner faster than electric vehicles are being sold. That's, the electrical grid's getting cleaner than farming is getting cleaned up. Like, all the things that are happening in the world, the one thing that's going well is adding solar and wind to our electrical grids. So I think that even though your grid today is somewhat dirty, going forward every day from this day forward, it gets a little bit cleaner, not dirtier. That's how the entire planet has been going every day for about like 10 years now. We're getting a cleaner and cleaner grid. So I think you have to plan for the future. Like we're all adults. We're going to be around for another 10, 20, 30 years, we all hope. And so we have to plan for that so that we have the future that we're going to live in, not so distant from now. So that'd be my thought, is like, do it because electrification makes sense. We know it's going to make sense. It makes sense now, and it's going to continue to make more sense every day.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I mean, certainly, yeah, I think I completely agree that the fact that, yes, moving forward, definitely things are becoming cleaner. And the fact that one of the real concerns going forward also is the grid security, ensuring that the right grid, the amount of grid requirements are in there. And I know that in countries like Australia, while they have hydropower and they have the solar powers in the right parts in Australia, but they can't bring it to the towns and cities where it's needed fast enough. So it's building that grid, that getting that grid transmission fast enough. And again, it comes down to skill set, having the right people doing this, and that's a challenge going forward globally. Now,
I want to comment on that, because there's the utilities. The utilities have a lot of control over what is said and what people think, because they're a big business. And so the utilities have been telling people that we need to extend large, big wires, because the utilities are going to build a big solar array over there, and then we need to deliver it to the city. However, what we're seeing in California, having studied this over and over, California has a lot of rooftop solar, is that solar arrays put on people's roofs make it so you don't have to run a big wire to some other place. And if you use a car, an electric car, as we are able to now, if you store the solar electricity so it doesn't just disappear, and you use it at night, you don't also have to extend these big wires. And there's this tension between utilities who are in the business of selling big wires and telling everyone we need big wires and we need big, 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 and we're gonna make big money, versus just people could put solar arrays up on the roof of their buildings and charge their car and go back and forth. And that is the same, you get the same electricity services, but you own it and you get the profit more that way. Versus, and also we have to wait. All these utilities are telling us we're gonna have to wait 3 years for this big electrical line, 5 years for that big wind turbine. You can put a solar panel up on your roof today and you don't have to wait at all. So I feel like we need to make sure that there's a balanced narrative, that we could do what's called distributed power, where individual business owners have their own solar panels and have some storage, or we can do central power where the grid is managed by the utilities. And it's a real choice. We don't only have one choice, we have two choices. We can do we solarize and store it on site and we get 95% of our problem dealt with that way, or we hand it over to the utilities to solve for us, or we do both.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Zul, would like to bring your perspective into what Sean's mentioned here about, storing that energy in electric vehicles and then powering your home. What's your thoughts on that? And what do you think, the likes of TNB and developers would consider, from that perspective?
Well, I think batteries are key to all these technologies, And if the battery technology improves, I think we can get more and more of this kind of practice in place. If the batteries are able to store so much and that you can use it to power homes, construction sites, and so on, then by all means, this is the way we should go. And in fact, batteries are essential in order to safeguard the green power that we are trying to produce. At one time, the whole of UK got a blackout because there was some issues with their battery storage, where the problem was it couldn't create enough safety net in order for it to not falter. Somehow, whatever the reason is, it caused a big problem. And essentially, it was a battery issue, as I understand it. So battery is the thing that needs to be developed further, because solar panels are just a question of making sure that they are more efficient and so on. But the battery is the one that is the intermediary technology that needs to move ahead, so that all the things that Sean is saying can be realized in a very, very big way, in whichever scale that you want to have it, whether it's national or just on a side. That's my take on it.
Thank you for your perspective, Azul. Now, Sean, there's a few questions on the chat box that I think we got probably another but less than 10 minutes of this session. But one of the things I'd like to bring is one of the questions they ask is about what about buying and selling emission reductions from electrification of restaurants and facilities? What are the challenges that the industry players may face, and what needs to change?
So using California, because I'm familiar with it, we have what's called a cap and trade, where people can sell the credits. And so it's worked well. It's made a lot of money. There's a big bank account now that is being used for projects. So you sell the carbon credits, and the money is then turned around and invested into cleaning up a building, electrifying it. But here's the problem, is that the businesses that are purchasing carbon credits so they can keep on polluting, the ones who buy it, those are the ones who are usually right next to the building, like the industry is right next to the poorest part of town. And in the United States, we have an intense legacy of racism, where what that really means is that the darkest skinned people get the most pollution. The people with the most skin tan, It's so if there's a cap and trade mechanism that makes it so that the poorest people, the ones who are just treated the least nicely in society, are the ones who just continue to get the pollution, then it's not a complete solution. And that is, I think, what we're finding in the United States and in California, is that it has to also, yes, a polluting, let's say that it was a power plant that was burning coal, and they want to buy someone else's pollution credits. They say, oh, so the restaurants in the main town of Kuala Lumpur, all the restaurants, they electrified, and that means that I'm going to pay them for that, and in return, I get to pollute here at my coal power plant. That can work, and it makes money, and you can do good things, but then what happens to the people who are right next to the coal plant who get the most pollution? So yes, on a cap and trade, and then you have to say, but the coal plant needs to get shut down in 5 years. You can't buy your way out of it forever. You can buy your way out of it for a little while, but not forever. And those are the two that have to go together. It's like, yes, you can extend it if you pay money, but we have to solve the problems for the people here. And those go together, and then we have like a nice complete policy for why you could buy and sell carbon credits.
Yeah, certainly agree. The world is facing some challenges in carbon credits at this moment. The validity or the verification process, but also making sure that they are maintained, managed throughout its life cycle as such, and that is a challenge for the world itself. And then not trying to also use carbon credits that are already existing and actually absorbing that CO2 already, and then trying to claim it, and there's duplications of all those sort of things. So there are some challenges in this as well.
There's, as you know, there's been some scams, where carbon credits weren't really benefiting. And then there's the gigantic wildfires. In the United States, we do a lot of carbon credits by preserving forests, but if the forest burns down, then the pollution happened the first time and it caused climate change. And then the forest fire, because of climate change, burned down, eliminating the carbon credit. And really all you did was spend some money to be allowed to pollute and cause more problems. That's not a great, that's not a great solution. So
certainly not.
Yeah.
Certainly not. And we got another 5 minutes. I just want to bring a quick perspective from you, Sean, on the heat pumps. And we know it does save cost, but it's expensive at this moment in time. adopted widely around, EU, China, UK, Australia, and so on and so forth. But in Southeast Asia, this is not the case yet, and it requires a bit of a change in mindset. So what do you think needs to be done to do this, and how does this, do you think, will work together with the other resources?
Well, I mean, I assume it's just Malaysia. I mean, Southeast Asia, you don't control other countries.
But
yeah.
Malaysia, let's say, in this perspective, right?
So, what I see is like, how does a country steer itself? What we have in California is deadlines. So there are like 500 companies in California that manufacture foods with burning gas. Like I showed the breweries and dairy. So there's more than 500 big companies in California that do that. And our government has issued just recently, like a couple months ago, they said, in 2027, you're not going to be allowed to do that anymore. You can do it this year, next year, but in 2027, we're no longer going to give you permission to burn gas in that building, and you're going to have to electrify. That's one strategy, which is to set a deadline and then move towards it, and of course provide subsidies, provide technical support, but just say, by this date, you guys have to do it. That is one approach, kind of heavy-handed, but it certainly works. Then the other approach is what America did with the Inflation Reduction Act, which is no punishments, no deadlines, just money. And I think that question comes to Malaysia. Do you have enough money to buy out all the businesses? Or do you have enough political power to tell them to do what you want them to do? Or some combination? But that's kind of it. Like, either you pay people off or you just tell them and you have political power, and those are kind of two paths. And
I guess it's a potential combination as such. Zul, just want to bring you very quickly in for your final thoughts, and before we hand it over to Shen.
Sorry, what was the question again? Sorry.
Just your final thoughts on what Sean mentioned, particularly on bringing mandatory requirements, or subsidizing this, or buying out. What are your thoughts on that, potentially, let's say in the case of like heat pumps or other even RE?
Well, I would like to just say, in the context of our own Malaysian environment, I think there must always be a balance between the carrot and the stick. Yeah, I'm quite sure even if we have this law, there will be some penalties, and the penalties, whether it's going to be imposed strictly or whether it's going to be very harsh, we have yet to see. But I think we need to have some level of strength in terms of enforcement, but at the same time we should also give a lot of incentives in order for the companies or the entities affected to enjoy the benefits of being energy efficient. Actually, it is very beneficial to them in the long run to understand the benefits of being energy efficient. So in our case, our duty would be to make sure that there's enough capacity, there's enough expertise in order for such non-compliance to not occur. Because one of the reasons why the excuse of not wanting to comply is because there may not be enough expertise. You need expertise like energy auditors, you need expertise like measurement and verification, energy managers on electrical, energy managers on thermal. There's various expertise on all kinds of equipment that needs to be developed over the period of time. So for us to make sure that it is properly addressed, there should be a concerted effort between the government, the private sector, the agencies, all the stakeholders, professional bodies, to see it and objectively and to promote the well-being of trying to tell them that everybody should play their part too, in trying to sustain our planet. Otherwise, it is our grandchildren and our generations to come that will blame us, because by then, as Obama said, this is the only generation that can do something about it. And they will be cursing both you, me, and everybody who's listening today. That is my take. Thank you.
Thank you, Arzul. Certainly, the right perspective in this sense, and the fact that we are serving humanity. Planet will survive; it will keep going, but it's the humanity that needs somewhat to be saved in this case. Now, thank you, Sean, and thank you, Arzul. Really interesting perspectives and your thoughts and sharing with all the attendees this morning. And thank you for CGM to arrange this. Now I would like to hand this back to Sean and to close this session today. And thank you everyone, and have a great day.
Well, thanks, Gandhi. That certainly is a very insightful discussion. Thanks, everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we wrap up this electrifying webinar series on transforming community buildings into efficient and sustainable spaces, I encourage you to take the knowledge and inspiration gained from this series and apply it in your everyday life. Recordings of the session will be up on YouTube in the next couple of days, along with an accompanying blog post up on our website as well. So please find a link on our Zoom chat box yes. Okay, so thank you for joining us on this electrifying journey, and sign up for next Wednesday session on our website. And we'll see you again next Wednesday. Thank you.